Good morning, you guys. I just wanted to take you through my old stomping grounds in Pensacola, Florida. So this is the neighborhood. I'm approaching it now. This is the neighborhood I grew up in when I was a little kid. So it's a neighborhood called Montclair. Montclair is in Pensacola, Florida. And this is the neighborhood where I rode my bike around in, pretty much lived in. I'm going to show you all the little places where I grew up. I don't know how interesting this will be to people, but this is Pensacola, Florida, where I grew up. No, I'm not back, but I'm on vacation visiting my mom and sister. There is the elementary school that I went to called Montclair Elementary. They've got a bunch of fences up now. When I was a kid, all this was wide open. I don't even think they're going to let me turn. Yeah, I can't even turn in here. It's got a fence where I used to be able to go in. But I would walk this sidewalk all the way to school when I was like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, all going through elementary school. This sidewalk was the one. There was always a neighbor dog right here that would just bark, scare the crap out of me. I do want to stop right here for a second at this store. So this store here, I've got a story to tell, and I don't want to just breeze by it. So it's much different than it was when I was a kid. It looks like a honky-tonk juke joint now. So I don't know what it is now. But you can see they got like bars and stuff up on the door. Again, it was very normal when I was a kid. And so this is the store. I'm going to tell myself a little bit, just to let you guys know there's a guy came out. That's why I'm going away. But that's the store where I went I'm trying to remember how old I was. I think I was 12 years old. And when I was 12 years old, I went in there. I was highly distraught. My mom had left her second husband, who was my stepdad. And I was pretty distraught in my life because of the divorce that she went through with him. And mama was starting to date different guys. And I was just like, okay, I need to get her attention because I was hurting. And I wanted to articulate to her I was hurting. I'm going to pull off to the side so I can finish this story. And let me turn it around so you can see my handsome mug. What up, guys? So yeah, I'm in Pensacola, Florida, those of you that came in late. And I'm showing you through my old neighborhood. I don't know how interesting this is, but I got lots of stories to tell because this is where I lived from the time I was 1.5 until I was 14. So I was just talking about that store. We called that the number 2 store. And I was 12 years old. I was distraught. I watched my mom go through a divorce, really nasty divorce. I watched all these guys coming in and out and all this, everything. And so I planned that I was going to go steal some stuff from that store. Remember, I was 12 years old, really distraught. And I went in there and I had a big overcoat on. It was one of those coats, the winter coats that are like really fluffy and pluffy and went down to your knees. And it had a little hole in the pocket that when it went through the pocket, it went through the hole and then down into the jacket itself. And so I started stuffing Hubba Bubba, Wrigley's, spearmint gum, juicy fruit, everything I could think of. Bubble gum, like of all the things I could have stolen in the world, bubble gum, really, Jimmy? Like, couldn't you have gotten like donuts or Coke or something? I guess I didn't want it to be so obvious because bubble gum's light, so you could get away with it. And I remember I was stuffing my jacket with all those packs of bubble gum. And I started to walk towards the door, but then I thought, no, let me buy a soda. So I go to the back, I grab a Coca-Cola, and I go up to the front, pay for the Coca-Cola. I think it was like 60 cents or whatever it was. Pay for the Coca-Cola, start to walk out the door, and then I feel a hand on my shoulder. And I knew I was busted. And the next thing I remember was they called the cops on me. The cops got there very fast, like within a minute. And I was put in the back of a police car. And of course, I was bawling my eyes out at 12 years old. And they took me down to the station, called my mom, and yeah, it was ugly. And that was an interesting way for me to get my mom's attention, because I was hurting at the time. And this is something, those of you that have been through trauma in your life, there comes a moment when you scream out for help, and when you're like desperate for anybody to pay attention to you. And so that was my incident that did that. That's probably the incident, because like I said, I was around 12. That's probably the incident that made my mom decide to ship me away to live with my dad, who I've talked about being very abusive physically and mentally to me all through my teenage years. So, interesting story, right? So, those of you just joining us, I am in my old stomping grounds of Pensacola, Florida. I'm here visiting my mom and my sister. They're the only family I have left in this area, and so I wanted to make a point to come see them for the holiday. So I've been here a few days, going to be here through Monday next week, so going to be here a while. So I thought, oh, I got time this morning. They don't wake up till like 10 a.m. Let's go talk to my Instagram people on a live and show you my old neighborhood. So this is like 4 miles from the hotel I'm staying at. So I showed you the elementary school. I showed you that sidewalk. I walked to school. It was about 10 blocks to get to school. And I showed you where I stole the bubble gum. So let's go down this. I'm actually on the street I grew up in. So this is the street. The neighborhood is very different from what it was. Not too much different. I mean, it's still the same houses and everything, but new people, new demographics here. But this is Harv Way in Pensacola, Florida. And so I'm going to come up here on my street, my old house. So you'll get to see the house I grew up in. It's a different color and it's a different scheme and all kinds of things, but it's basically the same house that I grew up in. Right there is my house in Pensacola, Florida when I was growing up. It's a bright yellow now. I'm trying to remember when I was there. I think it was like a puke green or a really light color, but they've colored it this really bright yellow color. But it's really fascinating because right there where the big windows are, right there you can see the big windows, that is where Mama always put the Christmas tree. And so from the road, you could see the Christmas tree. And it was interesting because these guys that have taken over the house, there used to be trees galore all in this yard. I mean, abundance of trees to the point that the roots pretty much took up the entire yard. And so I would have to get out there and mow little patches of grass because there was a lot of dirt patches and not really much grass. Now, the neighbor over here, who is the same lady, lives there now. She's an accountant, but she's the same lady. She still lives there today. She was our neighbor when I was a kid, and so she's pretty old now. But I remember she would ask me to come mow her grass, and I was like delighted because I wanted some grass to mow that was actually grass. But so you walk in the door, and inside the door is the little dining room area, and then you went down the stairs just a little bit, and that was the living room area. To the left of that was where the kitchen was, and then this little second living area in here. This is where my brother and I used to play Pong when it was a thing. Like when we first had video games in the 80s, Pong was so cool. You know, kids these days get the Nintendo Switch and Xbox and PlayStation 3, but we had Pong and it was awesome as hell. So but that's where we would play it. My bedroom, this is Beverly, my sister's bedroom. Mine was on the other side, on the back side of there. And then Kevin's bedroom was right there. And then mom and my stepdad were back here. So that's the house I grew up in. I could probably tell you a million stories all about this house, because just looking at this house now, I will tell you one quick one. Mama used to have a little carport right here that leaned over. So she had a little station wagon when I was a kid, because a bunch of kids. And so she used to have like a little carport right there. and it was leaning forward a little bit. So every time it rained, it would pour down this like water from the rain. It would just pour down. And so what did Jimmy do? He got some shampoo and washed his hair in the pouring down rain coming off the little carport. I know, I was a weird kid. I'm still a weird kid, but I'm just old now. But there was another thing on the front porch. Our mailbox was right here. And I remember one time, I don't know how it got in our yard, but I found a bullet. Just a bullet that had not been shot. And I thought, I know, I'm a stupid kid. I'll just slam it to the concrete just to see what happens. And so, needless to say, I slam it to the ground and it makes a loud boom. And I can't hear for the next 7 days out of that one ear. And Mom was like, "What did you do?" I'm like, I just wanted to see what would happen. Yes, boys will be boys, I guess is the saying. And I was one crazy boy. It's amazing I can still hear today. Yeah. Man, I could tell you so many stories. It's so funny. Do you guys get that when you go back to where you grew up and you see the house, and like I'm looking at this now and it's like, I could just think of so many things that happened here, but I don't want to bore you too much. I want to show you some of the rest of the neighborhood. So if you're just joining us, yes, this is Jimmy. I am gone, but I'm in Pensacola, Florida, and I'm like, this might be interesting to some of you guys, give you context. I sometimes talk about stories growing up, so it'd be kind of cool for you to actually see the visual. Now, let me turn it around over here. Let me scoot up just a little bit, because right over here was where Mr. Pete and Miss Louise lived. And so Mr. Pete and Miss Louise used to live right here, and we would bring them cans. Mr. Pete, he's like, if you give me 16 cans, I'll give you a quarter. And as a kid, like a 8-9-year-old kid, a quarter is like $1 million. And so I would be scrummaging all over the neighborhood looking for cans. And I'd be digging through people's trash looking for cans, because Mr. Pete said if I give him 16 cans, he'd give me a quarter. So I always did that. And what was funny was the neighbor kids found out about that deal Mr. Pete had, and they'd bring him 2 cans and they expected a quarter. And he's like, no, it's 16 cans make a pound. And so a pound gives you a quarter. I need 16 cans. And the kids in the neighborhood didn't understand that except for me. Somebody says, where does your mom live now? So she lives with my sister, which is over in a town over just the outskirts of Pensacola called Cantonment. So she lives there right now. All right, right here on this corner was my bus stop. So this was my major bus stop in middle school, was right here. And I remember it vividly because there was a girl that lived down this way that she walked to this bus stop. I'm not going to say her name, but in case she finds this, but I had a major crush on that girl, my God. And she was so beautiful to me, but I never had the gumption to ask her out or anything. But right there was where I would stand, and I usually get there like early in the morning. I was one of the first or second people that was always there at the bus stop. And I remember this bus stop specifically because I remember one day this guy that lives down the road from me over here, he was mad at me about something. And he said, I'm going to kick your ass when I get off the bus. And so as literally as soon as I walked off the bus hadn't even pulled away yet. Soon as I walked off the bus, he got out first. And I got off, and the next thing I know is I had a fist right in my face. And he punched me directly in the nose, and I'm bleeding like everything. And of course, I was always a passive kid, very nonviolent. And I looked back at the bus driver, and I was like, are you going to help me? And she was very sweet. I remember she was an amazing, wonderful black lady. I loved her. But she's like, I got to finish the route. But she called the principal and he got suspended. for doing that. But I got home that day and I was like sticking tissue paper all up inside my nostrils trying to get the bleeding to stop. But that was my bus stop when I was in middle school. And then in high school, before I moved to live with my dad in Tennessee, in high school, my bus stop was this corner right over here. And so right here's where we stood. And it was me and the girl that actually lived there. We were friends. And so that's where that was. Yeah, I could tell you all kind of stories about how I went up and down this road. I had a friend that lived about 3 streets down to the right. I'd go see him. Let me do a little dipsy doodle because I want to show you the rest of Harv Way. But yeah, it's surreal. When you go back to your old hometown where you grew up, isn't it surreal when you start thinking about all the memories that come back when you're back in your old neighborhood again? That's kind of where I'm at. Those of you joining us late, this is my street I grew up on when I was a kid. It's called Harv Way in Pensacola, Florida, in the Montclair area. Nobody in my family lives here anymore, but hello, Lindy. But this is my old stomping ground. So those of you that are public school teachers like Lindy, or you remember this, remember they used to have us sell candy bars and M&Ms and magazines. Well, guess what Jimmy did? Jimmy took his bicycle and I literally hit door to door to door to door to door. They knew me by first name because I was the only one that took the initiative in my neighborhood to go after getting a sale because I wanted to win all those prizes. I was one of the ones that got suckered into believing I was going to win those big prizes, and I would work my butt off to make sales. Quite frankly, I'm surprised I never got into sales as a job because I was so motivated and all these people were like so responsive. Wow, you're always here when you got something to sell. But I would ride my bicycle down this, and I kind of liked it going this way because as you can see, you may not be able to see on the camera angle, but it's a downhill and it's about to get really downhill here in a second. When I was feeling good, I would go this way and just, this is the normal way. If I decided to go this way, it's a steeper hill down, but then there's a hill to get up the road. So I didn't like that. You can get on up the road just by going down this hill, and it's steep enough. As you will see, you can kind of see it's a drop off here. And so, oh, Mary says, I was born in Pensacola. That's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't born here. I was born in Tennessee, but then my parents divorced when I was 1.5, and my mom's new husband lived here in Pensacola. So that's how we ended up here. So we're going down the hill, make a little curve. Sometimes that curve I didn't quite make, and I would slam into the neighbor's yard. They're like, "You okay?" Yeah, it's just going too fast down the hill. And so I would come down this hill and come all the way to the bottom. And this is going to be like not very exciting, but right here where let me park first so I can not wreck. Right here, again, it's not exciting because you don't see anything there, but where that field is now used to be the public swimming pool. And it was hustling and bustling during the summer months. Like, Mama used to come with us, and then she would then leave and say, okay, you guys could ride your bicycles home or walk home. But then by the time we would be ready to go, we'd be so sunburnt and the chlorine was burning our eyes so much, and we were tired from swimming for hours, that we would like beg her. We'd call on we had to call on the pay phone because there was no cell phone, but they had a little pay phone, and I had 1 quarter left. And I called Mom, I'm not feeling good. Can you come get us? And da-da-da. And remember, I just drove. It's not even a half a mile to get here. But she would make us come home, walk home, or ride our bikes home. And I remember how miserable I was. But anyway, lots of fun. I do remember that really strong chlorine smell in the pool area. That's where I learned how to hold my breath underwater. I remember freaking out my brother one time. My brother Kevin I was underwater for about a minute and a half, and he was worried about me. He thought I was dead. But that's where I learned how to hold my breath, was in that pool right there. Yes, I am on vacation, Paul. Thank you for being concerned. Literally, I'm on vacation showing you stuff while I'm on vacation. So I thought this would be interesting. It would be a missed opportunity not to talk about my old neighborhood, since I'm so close to where I grew up. Now, this right here is the church I went to when I first lived here. My mama was the organist in the church, and it's very different. There were buildings here when I was growing up that we had the Sunday school classes in, and right here is the church. Lakeview Baptist Church is what it's still called. I see the sign over there. So this was the church I grew up in. I remember going into that door right there, and Mama was the organist, and I'd sit. There's the congregation would be in there, and yeah, I would sit on the second row on the organ side, 6, 7, 8 years old, and sleep. So I remember laying down on the second pew. Yes, I was that kid. But then I started like paying attention to some of the stuff, and I was always fascinated by the music. And then I started hearing some of the sermons. This is the church I got saved in. I remember it was 1979 when it was in March that they had a revival preacher come in, and he was vividly describing what hell was like and how you don't want to go there and what it takes to make that happen, accept Jesus, da-da-da. And I gave my life to the Lord. And I remember how nervous I was walking to the front that day, thinking everybody's going to judge me, and it was not that way at all. And then the next week after that, I got baptized in this church. So this church has a special meaning to me. We used to have Vacation Bible School here. And let me get out of the car because I want to tell a story. I want to go down here and tell a story. We used to have Vacation Bible School here, and they would have all kinds of events all through here. And again, they used to have trailers over here where they had little classrooms. But Vacation Bible School, and so we had little fun play area. We'd play little games out here. I think this was the parsonage at the time. It probably still is. But I remember riding my bike down here quite often when I was a kid. And I want to take you to a spot because I want to show you. I think I've told this story on my podcast a few times. So there's a spot down here that Jimmy thought, hey, I can jump that with my bike. Guess what? Jimmy didn't jump it with his bike. Now, when I was a kid, it seemed bigger than I'm seeing it now. But remember, I was kind of a big kid as well. I was the fat kid, so cognitive dissonance here. But right here is a little bitty hole, right? Just a little bitty hole. No big deal to jump this. So I rear back my bike way back there, kind of get on that hill, and I'm zoom, 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 zoom. And then I try to pick up the handlebars right about here, and I jerk up. And what happens? The tire plants right into the hole. I flip. And excuse me, ladies, but my nuts got crushed. And it was not pleasant. Let's just put it that way. And it was that day that I was like, okay, am I ever having kids? Because that sucked. But I really thought I could. And then, no, I flipped right over like a dumbass. So, yes, if you're just joining us, I'm going a trip down memory lane. I am in my old stomping grounds of Montclair in the Pensacola, Florida area. I'm currently at the church I grew up in. This is where I got saved, where I got baptized. And I'm trying to show you some of the kind of stories that I talk about kind of often on my shows to kind of give you context. And now you have a visual. Those of you watching this on YouTube or watching it on IGTV, I hate you missed it live, because I went live early because my mom doesn't even wake up till 10 Central. So I've been up a long time, and I thought, let's do this for you guys. But it's so funny, like my perception of things when I was a kid, I imagined this hill being so steep. It's not steep at all, but my memory of it was that it was really steep. Isn't that funny? Your perception of things changes, or I guess it accentuates to much bigger than what it actually is. See, my problem is, as I'm walking around, I have so many stories. Oh, I got a good story about this store over here. Looks like it's torn down now. But that store right there, so close to the swimming pool. So remember, the swimming pool's right here. So sometimes I would go across, this is Michigan Avenue right here. Sometimes I would go across Michigan Avenue. Now, Michigan Avenue is 3 lanes, then a middle lane, then 3 lanes. It's a big thoroughfare for traffic. Well, I was forbidden to go from here and go across the street on my bike and go to that store. But forbidden didn't stop me from going. So I remember I was about 8 or 9, and I went across the street. I got whatever I got, candy probably. And I'm gonna turn around so I can talk to you. So then I get home, and my stepdad, who is Beverly, my sister's dad, he passed away last year. But my stepdad, Jerry, said, "Did you cross Michigan Avenue today?" I said, "No, you told me I can't, so no." He's like, "I was driving by when you crossed the road." Like I wasn't cognizant enough to know. They don't ask a question they don't already know the answer to. So needless to say, I got a big old belt on my butt that day. I always hated this phrase, "this is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you." Okay, then let's switch seats. But I never crossed the road again, let's put it that way. But that was fun. So yeah, if you're just joining, guys, thanks for being here. I am in my old stomping grounds of Pensacola, Florida, going through my old neighborhood. It's vastly different demographically today than it was when I was a kid in the 1980s. And but it's still cool that I can see enough of the remnants of what it was that I can tell you these stories. Let me keep going, because there's a couple more things I wanted to show you. But like literally, I lived here till I was 14, so I never drove here. So when I come back home, my mom is like, "Oh yeah, just drive over to airport and then over to Davis." I'm like, "Mom, if it's not near Montclair that I drove my bicycle on, I don't know about it." So, oh, right here. Right before I moved away, when I was 14, there was a game room and a little putt-putt kind of golf place right here where this academy is. So I do remember that. And we would come up there to play games and putt-putt. I think they even had go-karts. There's all kind of stuff at that. And then my best friend in school lived down this way. You went down that street and a few streets over, and that's where he lived when I was growing up. I lost touch with him. I saw him one time after I turned 20. I saw him one time. There was one time I came back. And I reunited with him and 2 other friends that we played in the band together. We all played alto saxophone. And so I did see him then. And then the next time I came back was in my early 20s. And he was married and had kids. And he had kind of changed. But I guess you noticed that. Maybe some childhood friends that you were the best of friends with them when you were kids. And then you become an adult and something happens. sometimes just life shifts, and it's all good. You're not meant to have the same friends your entire life. And so it's a truism. If you haven't figured that out, that's a truism you need to embrace. All right, there is a store up here on the left. I remember one Christmas I got a Michael Jackson wallet for Christmas. When Thriller was big, and it was in this shopping center, I believe it was, where the store was, right there. And I remember I had gotten a $50 bill. I was so rich. And that $50 bill was inside that Velcro Michael Jackson wallet. And I accidentally left the wallet on the counter when I paid for my stuff at the convenience store. And I didn't realize it till I was halfway home, and I went back and I asked the clerk about it. Nope, hadn't seen it. And I ended up looking, he said, look in the dumpster. And I looked in the dumpster, I found the wallet, but the guy had taken, whoever had stolen it, had taken the $50 bill. And I remember how distraught I was. I was so upset because I just lost $1 million in my mind, because $50 to a little kid is a lot of money. And it's still a lot of money today, don't get me wrong, but it was really a lot of money when you're that age. And anyway, I think that's where I kind of learned the value of money and the value of trying to take care of it and all that jazz. So, all right, so we're coming up on, I played baseball when I was in my youth. I was horrible because I was the fat kid. And I remember the name of the team that I was on was DAP's Auto Parts Store. That was the name of the team. So guess what they called us on our hats and on our jerseys? It was DAPS, DAP's Auto Parts Store. But guess what the nickname was that the kids called us? We were the Dips. And so they would make fun of us, and we were the worst team in the league. And I was a bench player. But I'm going to tell you a story here in a minute. We're coming up on the ball field. So over here on the right, coming up, is the ball field where Jimmy Moore played baseball when he was like 8 or 9 years old, whatever that's called, youth baseball. But this field over here is where Jimmy played baseball as a kid. And I remember being on that field. They had 2 or 3 games going at once, but that was the field, that one right there, that I would play. Let me turn in here and let's see if I can park so I'm on a main street here. But right here was where Jimmy made his big professional athletics debut. And yeah, it was this field up here. Let me scoot on up so you can see it. But this field right here, I will never, ever forget. You know how you have those childhood memories that stick with you? This right here that I'm about to tell you is kind of cool. So right there is home plate. You can kind of imagine it. And they had me come out and pinch hit before I went to play right field. So I came out to pinch hit, and they put me in the game. And this guy that was on the mound was one of the tallest kids. I think we were like 6th or 7th grade, but he was already like 6'1" or 2". He was a big kid. And a black guy, and he was mocking me because he knew he was going to strike me out. So he didn't even try to throw his fastball. I think fastball was what he was good at. He didn't even try to throw his fastball. He's like, I'm going to get Jimmy just throwing slow. And so I remember he mocked me a little bit, and he would laugh while he was throwing the ball. And the first ball he threw was like a ball. And then the next ball I swung and I missed, and he really started laughing at that point. The very next pitch, he is like laughing his head off. He can hardly contain himself, throwing it so slow into me. And I zeroed in my vision on it, and I knocked the crap out of that ball all the way to center field. It actually hit the fence. It missed the coach said it missed the fence by like 2 inches going over. I would have had a home run. But I was so fat, it should have been a double. I was so fat, I barely made it to first base. And I whack, waddled all the way to first base. But I remember coach gave us signs for steal, and the sign for steal was pulling on his left ear. So when he pulled on his left ear, that meant steal. And I looked at him thinking, why is he having me steal? Not realizing because of my lard ass, I needed to get a head start. So he was telling me steal because he had a hit planned for the kid at the plate. And so I remember he told me steal. So as soon as the ball started getting pitched, I ran like all get out. And I actually would have beat the throw, but they got me just like right at the time. If I was about 10 pounds less, I could have got there. But that's my moment of glory. That same game, I played the outfield in the right field, and a ball came right at me. It hit me in the glove, and then it fell to the ground. So, yes, my not so illustrious athletic career ended that day. So. And yeah, I mean, baseball was never my thing. I never really wanted to play it. I just wanted the camaraderie of it because I had heard it was fun, As I got older, I got taller. I started getting more interested in things like basketball and not so much baseball. But that was the field where I had my moment of glory in baseball. I got a big hit off the best pitcher. I think that guy went on to play in college, so showed him for trying to mock me. But 6th, 7th grade, I can understand. That's kind of the mentality, right? If you joined late, I am in my hometown of Pensacola, Florida, and I'm taking you through my old stomping grounds. I'm trying to think what else I could show you. Oh, I do want to show you when I used to go to this mall. The mall's not there anymore. It's a big shopping center now. But when I was a kid, I would ride my bicycle to this mall, and it's kind of an interesting route to get there. All right. I was trying to let somebody in. They were like, nope, don't want to go in. All right. So let me switch it back around so I can give you commentary where we are. So we're passing these train tracks, and up on the right will be the elementary school, which I showed you earlier, Montclair. And I will tell you, okay. Yes, here we go. So this right here was the third store. So we had a first, second, and third store. So this right here was the third store growing up. Hardly ever came to the third store because I could get what I needed from the first and second store. But there was the third store. And it was, like I said, just beyond where the elementary school was. Oh, I know what I can show you while I'm here. So up here on the left, I don't know if there's anything there anymore, but when I was in preschool, it was right across the street from the elementary school, and it was right here. That's where my preschool was, and I remember going to that preschool. Pretty amazing. And then coming up here, the one that I stole the bubble gum from, remember that story earlier? So right there, we called the number 2 store. And again, it's vastly different now, lots of lights and bars now. And then number 1 store was this one right here, and this looks like it's just totally here. Let me pull in here. This was the number 1 store right here. And I always remember it because it had 7-Eleven, but it wasn't a 7-Eleven. That was literally their hours. But I always called it 7-Eleven because it had 7-11, but it wasn't like a 7-Eleven store. And I remember in there they had a scale. You remember those stores that would have, you could put in a quarter and then it was a scale and it would do your heart rate. So I stepped on the scale and I would do my heart rate. And of course I was stupid as a kid. Florida, yes, Pensacola, Florida. So I was kind of stupid as a kid. So I thought, let me go do the heart rate thing. Let me go run around first. And my heart rate will be really good. And again, I was just a little snotty-nosed 7-year-old kid. And I would run around, I would, make a bunch of hooping and hollering, and I'd go in there and it'd be like 135. Whoa, I thought it was supposed to be good. Right inside that door is where that scale was with the little heart rate thing. I was so stupid sometimes. But right next to the number 1 store, I remember when they put in a donut shop. It was right here. And I remember I had never heard of a bear claw. I had never heard of a lot of things they sold. The Eclair. I'd never heard of any of those things. We just had Krispy Kreme. or Dunkin'. And so right there was where the donut shop was. And yeah, I went to town on the donut shop. I'm trying to remember what was down there. I think there was like a rummage store on down. It wasn't a big shopping center, but number one store. That was my favorite store to go to. And yeah, like I said today, you can see the broken glass. It's a very different demographic in this neighborhood than when I was a kid. All right, so let's go on this main street here. This is Hollywood Avenue, just to kind of give you a bearing for where you are. Right over there is Harv Way, where I grew up. So I used to drive from over there on my bicycle all the way to here onto Hollywood Avenue. And so here on Hollywood, let me make sure nobody's coming. Somebody is coming, so hang on. Hollywood Avenue was where I would go. Oh, there's somebody else coming. I'm watching all around. I don't want to hit somebody just telling you this story. So, all right, so Hollywood Avenue. So I would ride my bicycle, and I kind of liked this little ride right here. This was kind of cool. And I remember I always was a thinker when I would walk, when I would ride my bicycle. I just remember, even as a kid, I still do it to this day, but even as a kid, I remember some of my best thinking happened when I wasn't doing anything and I was just walking or riding my bicycle. And I did a lot of thinking on this road here when I'd ride my bicycle. And so I go down this road. There's like a little very small radio station that I would pass by up here on the left. I don't even know if it's there anymore. But I remember passing by and it would have the call letters out. Let's see, where I think that was it back there, and it's no longer there. So, and then there was like a car parts salvage thing up here on the left. So right there was where the car parts salvage thing used to be. Looks like they still got a bunch of cars out there. Yep. And so then, like I'm going downhill here. Look at this one right here. So this right here, it goes straight up. At least when I was a kid, this felt like straight up. It's not straight up, but it was murderous trying to get up this little part right here. And I would sometimes have to get off my bike and just walk it up this hill. But this is where it gets really interesting, because we're coming up on Fairfield Road. And remember Michigan Avenue? So Michigan Avenue, this is an even busier road, Fairfield, than Michigan Avenue was. So I'm showing you this because coming up to the right, when I get out on the main street here in a second, is where I would ride the bicycle to get to the mall. Now, Mama was worried about us when we were small, so she wouldn't let us ride our bike. But I think once I became 12 is when she let me start to ride my bicycle, 11 or 12, ride my bicycle up to the mall. Now, these days, a lot of parents won't even let their kids get out and get that far away from home because of the fear of getting snatched and, human trafficking and all that stuff. But nobody cared about that in the 80s. In the 80s, it wasn't a concern. Not like it is today. It's a big concern today. So, all right, so I'm going to turn it back around once we're on the main street here. All right. I hope this is interesting, because I don't know how interesting. What years did I live there, Mary says. So I lived here 1.5. So it was right around 1974 until 1986 was when I moved to live with my dad. All right, so this is the sidewalk where I rode my bicycle. And as you can see, it's a pretty long way. And I remember Mama was like, "Are you sure you want to go your bicycle?" Because we're talking probably 2 miles from our house on a bicycle. And with a lot of like you can see the traffic, the potential. And so I would go all the way down here. So all along this sidewalk, like literally just kept riding the bicycle all along the sidewalk. But then the mall was on this side of the road. And so I would have to go all the way up here. And I remember I would get all the way down that I could before I would try to cross these 4 or 5 lanes to get to the mall. So again, the mall's not there anymore. It's now a shopping center. I'm just going to pull in here Mariner Mall is what they called this, but now it's Lowe's and all kind of little stores. Ross, I believe, is up here. But anyway, so we come into the mall, and the reason I love the mall had an AMC theater. So the AMC was down this way, next to where the Ross and some of these other Office Max, all this is Office Depot. I'm gonna let this car by. All right, so let me get over here. Yeah, it's amazing how they transformed this from the mall to this, but that's what they do. Things don't stay the same. So anyway, this was the end of the mall where we would go in. And when we would go into the mall, it would be right here. Let me park the car, Jay. Go in right here, and then as soon as you walked in, straight ahead was AMC Theaters. And I remembered the AMC Theater because it was the cheaper theater. You could go see a movie in the 1980s for $1. And one thing I really remember was they always had the Rocky Horror Picture Show playing. I didn't know what that was. Like, I didn't realize that was a real movie. I just thought, oh, Rocky Horror Picture Show. What is that? And I had no idea. So, but then right next door to the AMC was an arcade, and my brother and I, we were arcade kings when we were growing up. Miss Pac-Man was my game. I loved it when they sped up the Pac-Man, and so I was really good at Miss Pac-Man. I'm trying to remember what my brother Kevin played. I think it was Centipede was his thing. He loved Centipede. Had that little roller ball and then shooting. Yeah. But we would spend a lot of time in Mariner Mall. Now, it's a little podunk mall. If you've got like a little small mall where you live, imagine about 10% of that size. That's how small Mariner Mall was. So was not very big at all. But when you're a kid, again, every little thing gets accentuated, making it seem like it's bigger than it really is. So I could show you so many other things. I remember when Rocky IV came out. Remember the one where he fought the Russian in the mid 80s? And that, I think it was Rocky IV. It was 3 or 4. But I remember it was one of the very first movies that teamed up with a fast food restaurant to basically have a cross promotion. And I remember the Church's Chicken right across the street over here. I doubt it's still there, but it might be. The Church's Chicken had a big like sign of Rocky and promoting that movie. And I thought that was so cool as a kid. Mama, we have to go to Church's. I want to get the cup that has Rocky on it. And it's just, it's funny how that kind of started in the mid 80s. Now it's so ubiquitous, we don't even think about it. But that was a memory from there. It's funny what you remember. I hate talk to text. I was asking, what's your mom fixing for Thanksgiving dinner? Oh, no. It's just me and my mom and my sister. And my sister was like, so are we going to have a big Thanksgiving meal? I'm like, it's 3 of us and we all eat keto. It's like, we didn't really have tradition of having to have turkey and all the everything, not to the degree that it's something that has to happen now. So I asked the 2 of them, I'm like, what do you think about grilling steaks on the barbecue on Thanksgiving? And they're like, sounds good to me. So we're grilling steaks for Thanksgiving. And not that. Brandy says, I remember the dollar theaters. Yes, dollar theaters are ancient history now. I would even take, like now, I would take $5 theaters. Of course, all of that's archaic because everybody has a Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and all that kind of stuff. Hulu, Roku, so YouTube. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming down memory lane with me today. I was not planning on going live, but then I thought, man, I'm so close to my old stomping grounds. Maybe this will be interesting to fans of mine. So Thank you for watching. There's still a bunch of you on here, so I guess it was engaging enough. So I am going to get off of here. My mom still won't be awake for another 2.5 hours, so I have lots and lots of time. Toonie Tuesdays at the movies. Yes. Interesting. We're having turkey, cornbread, dressing, and some green beans. Cool, cool. Yeah, when I went away, it wasn't because I didn't want to do the work and didn't want to see you guys. When I went away, it was more of I could see the climate of the online world getting ugly post-election, so I just didn't want to be a part of all that. So thank you for respecting that boundary for me. And so, yeah, just know I want to be here. I want to be making content. If you're not already following me, by the way, over on my new Instagram page for Jimmy Rants, it's at Jimmy Rants. Go follow at Jimmy Rants, because I won't be posting those here anymore. So if you like the Jimmy Rants episodes that I do, go follow at Jimmy Rants. I will still have them on YouTube, and they'll be on IGTV on at Jimmy Rants. But that way I can keep this channel mostly for the diet and health stuff, and then Jimmy Rants will be pretty much everything else. So I love a good trip, stroll down memory lane. I'm doing that this week as well. That's cool, Shirley. We all need that for our mental health. And it's been a tough year on me with everything all of us have dealt with, plus going through a personal situation that's still going to be unresolved for at least a few more months, if not many more months. So yeah, homeboy need to get away, but I'm happy to have brought this to you guys here today. Yes, go follow my new page at Jimmy Rants. I've been wanting to do that for a while to separate it from my low carb work, because on Jimmy Rants I talk about a lot of nutrition stuff, but not exclusively. And so some people were like, stay in your lane. And so, okay, fair enough. I'll keep living low carb, man, just health and nutrition, and Jimmy more stuff, and then that page will be pretty much whatever Jimmy cares about. So all right, let me pop off of here for now. I gotta go to the bathroom now. I've been on here a long time, so TMI. So I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon. Bye.